There are women who walk through fire and come out carrying light, not because they're unscathed, but because something greater walks with them. You've seen them. Women who don't just survive adversity, they transform through it. They lose people, but not their peace. They face betrayal, yet hold on to compassion. These women are not lucky, they are covered. They are guided by something not always visible but always present. And whether they realize it or not, their life reflects a quiet kind of protection, one that doesn't prevent every storm, but always leads them through it. Today, we're not just talking about strength. We're uncovering the signs that a woman is being divinely protected from harm, from hidden enemies, from paths not meant for her. And the more we understand these signs, the more we begin to trust the journey, even when it makes no sense. Because protection doesn't always feel like comfort, it often feels like isolation, delay, or even loss. But if we look closer, we'll see the pattern. And in that pattern, we'll see her purpose. There's a quiet power that lives within the most protected individuals. It's not always visible, but it's always present. You can sense it when you meet them, something deeper than logic, something that whispers before the world shouts. This is intuition, and for many women who carry divine protection, it's the very first sign that something greater is guiding their lives. Intuition is not just a feeling, it's an internal compass that points toward or away from people, places, or decisions long before anything obvious happens. For some, this voice comes as a knot in the stomach. For others, it's a wave of unease. Sometimes it feels like discomfort around someone who hasn't said anything wrong. Sometimes it's a clear thought that rises during stillness. Either way, the protected woman listens. And over time, she learns to trust it without needing all the facts first. There are moments she can't explain, times when she left a relationship before it turned dangerous, walked away from a conversation that would have twisted into harm, or passed on an opportunity that wasn't what it seemed. She doesn't always know why in the moment, but something within her insists, this isn't right. She's learned not to argue with that voice anymore. Not because she's afraid, but because every time she ignored it in the past, she paid a price. The strength of that intuition isn't just hers. It's not simply instinct. It's wisdom passed down through generations. It's the unseen force that speaks up before she's even aware of what she's being protected from. Some might call it luck, but it's much more than chance. It's alignment with something that sees what she can't and loves her enough to intervene. But even beyond this internal guidance, there's something else that marks the life of a woman protected from harm. Help shows up when she needs it most. Not always in dramatic ways. Often quietly, subtly, and in perfect timing. When she's overwhelmed, the right person calls. When she's stuck, a new door opens. When she's hurting, something shifts, not necessarily to fix everything, but enough to keep her going. These interventions are not always easy to spot in the moment. They often look like coincidences. A canceled trip that saves her from a bad encounter. A delayed meeting that reroutes her schedule in a way that avoids confrontation. A stranger offering kindness just as her strength is wearing thin. But she notices the pattern over time, and it's hard to ignore. This isn't about life being easy. Protected doesn't mean untouched by hardship. It means that hardship never has the final word, that even in struggle she is never left without support, that even when she falls, someone or something catches her. It's the feeling of being carried through storms she didn't think she could survive. It's walking through fire and realizing she's been shielded from the worst of the heat. What's remarkable is how this pattern continues even when she doubts herself. Even when she's not sure she deserves help, help finds her. This is not about being perfect, it's about being preserved. It's about the grace that steps in not because she's earned it, but because she's valued beyond measure. In times when she feels isolated, this divine support reminds her she's not alone. In seasons when she feels invisible, someone sees her. Someone in this crowd is looking for someone like they value their soul's missing sight. And in moments when she's out of answers, answers come, sometimes as people, sometimes as peace. But they come, not always how or when she expected, but always with purpose. She may not always be aware of the battles she's been protected from. Most of the time, she doesn't see what almost happened. But that's the very point of being protected. It's not about dramatic rescue. It's about quiet redirection. It's the road she didn't take, the friend she didn't trust, the opportunity she let pass. And later she understands why. There is power in knowing you are protected, even when you can't see the full picture, and even more power in choosing to trust that voice, follow that nudge, and stay open to unexpected help. Because that's how it works. It's not just about surviving what was meant to harm you. It's about being positioned for what was meant to grow you. Some women carry that kind of covering, not loudly, not with pride, but with a deep awareness that they are not navigating this life alone. They listen more, they resist less, and over time, their lives become examples not of perfection, but of preservation. Some women carry a presence that cannot be easily explained. They walk into rooms but never fully belong to every circle. Not because they're unfriendly, not because they're arrogant, but because something within them resists blending into spaces where darkness quietly thrives. This isn't isolation, it's insulation. When a woman is protected in spirit, her energy doesn't harmonize with manipulation. She may try to fit in. She may even force herself to laugh at the wrong jokes or tolerate the wrong company, but something in her always feels out of place. It's as if her soul whispers, "This isn't where you're meant to settle." That sense of disconnection isn't failure, it's protection. It's the invisible wall between her peace and someone else's chaos. This doesn't mean she's better than others. It means she's being pulled away from harm before it happens. Often, she doesn't even know what's being avoided. She just knows the discomfort is real. It might look like walking out of a gathering early, leaving a conversation mid-sentence, or distancing herself from a friend group she once valued. And on the outside, it may seem abrupt, but inside, she understands that she's preserving something more important than comfort. She's preserving her alignment. There's a quiet intelligence in the way life separates her from places that would chip away at her worth. Sometimes that separation happens through her own choices. Sometimes it's forced. People ghost her. Invitations stop, communication fades. And though it may sting, the silence that follows doesn't feel like abandonment. It feels like relief. That relief is not accidental. People often misunderstand her absence. They say she changed. They think she gave up. What they don't see is the moment she realized her peace was non-negotiable. That moment is sacred. It's the moment a woman finally accepts that she doesn't have to prove her loyalty to places that drain her. She doesn't have to stay where she doesn't feel seen. And once she makes peace with that, her life begins to shift in the right direction. Letting go isn't always easy. We form attachments, we create history, we dream of futures that no longer align with reality. But when a woman is divinely protected, the process of letting go isn't marked by devastation, it's marked by clarity. The departure may be hard, but what follows is unmistakable. That peace doesn't come from ignoring pain. It comes from trusting that the loss is part of her protection. Not everyone who leaves is an enemy. But not everyone is meant to stay either. Some people were only supposed to walk a short distance with her, and when their presence begins to hinder her growth, life finds a way to remove them. The key is in how she responds. Instead of chasing closure, she learns to embrace the calm that follows disconnection. She may cry, but she doesn't beg. She may reflect, but she doesn't return. And as time passes, she realizes that what felt like rejection was actually redirection. The very absence that once hurt becomes the space where she finds herself again. That's the beauty of spiritual protection. It doesn't always shield you from pain, but it always leads you to healing. It doesn't promise a life without loss, but it does promise restoration on the other side. And for the woman who walks this path, peace becomes her signal. If she feels more free after something ends, she knows the ending was right. In a world that glorifies hustle and connection, solitude can seem like a weakness, but for her, solitude is a sanctuary. It's in that quiet space that she reconnects with her values, resets her energy, and remembers who she is. She no longer fears separation because she knows what it brings: clarity, protection, and the next step in her evolution. This cycle plays out again and again. A toxic tie fades, she feels the sting, then the calm. A space no longer fits, she walks away, then finds better. These aren't coincidences, they're patterns of protection. They're the evidence of a deeper orchestration in her life. The woman who is shielded from evil doesn't live a perfect life, but she lives an aligned one. And in her alignment, she walks lightly, listens deeply, and moves only toward what feels true. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. There's something distinct about a woman whose strength doesn't need to be loud. She's not easily shaken. People may throw words at her, test her patience, even try to provoke her, but she doesn't respond with the same chaos. Not because she lacks emotion, but because her emotions are grounded. This emotional discipline is not the product of simple maturity. It's a sign that something deeper is guarding her spirit. When a woman is divinely protected, her self-control becomes a shield. She learns that reaction is not always power. In fact, her ability to pause, to choose a higher response, is what sets her apart. She no longer feels the need to match the energy of those trying to bring her down. She sees their behavior for what it is, not an attack to fear, but a reflection of their own struggle. People often mistake this calm for weakness. They assume she's passive or indifferent, but it takes far more strength to remain centered than it does to explode. Anyone can react. Few can reflect in real time. Fewer still can walk away with dignity. She does not suppress how she feels. She processes it. But she processes it with wisdom, not impulse. She has come to understand that not everything deserves a response, that sometimes silence is the most strategic answer. Not silence from fear, but silence from clarity. She sees through the surface. She knows when someone is baiting her into a storm that isn't hers to enter. She knows when to stay still and when to speak, not to win, but to protect her peace. This kind of restraint isn't natural at first. It's something life teaches her. Through broken trust, betrayal, manipulation, each time she responded in anger or hurt, she saw what it cost her. She lost time, energy, sometimes even her sense of self. Slowly, she learned the value of choosing stillness. She learned that emotional intelligence is not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. What allows her to do this isn't just experience, it's the realization that she is not fighting alone, that someone greater than her is handling what she doesn't see. So she doesn't have to over-explain, overreact, or overexert herself. She stays steady and lets what's meant to fall, fall. And while her emotional strength builds a quiet wall against chaos, there's another trait she carries that signals her protection. She rises from things that should have broken her. Pain, disappointment, loss, none of these leave her untouched. But none of them define her either. She is marked by resilience that doesn't announce itself with fanfare, but whispers its presence through her steady steps forward. She has known heartbreak, but she didn't close off. She has faced betrayal, but she didn't lose her ability to trust. Each time life pushed her down, something lifted her. She didn't always understand how. Sometimes it was a conversation. Other times it was a small moment of hope that came just in time. But she always got back up. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What makes her rise is not just willpower, it's purpose. It's that quiet conviction that her story doesn't end in defeat. She believes she is here for something bigger, and that belief fuels her even when the way isn't clear. She understands that falling doesn't make her fragile, it makes her human. And rising doesn't require perfection, it requires courage. This courage isn't loud either. It shows up in the way she chooses to try again, to love again, to trust herself again, even after everything. People see her strength and think she's just naturally tough, but her toughness was earned. Through nights she cried alone, through days she had to smile through pain, through seasons she had to build herself from the ground up. She's not invincible, she's anchored. Anchored in something deeper than success, relationships, or comfort. She's anchored in faith. And because of that, even when the world spins out of control, she doesn't collapse. She adapts. She learns. And she continues. Every time life thought it had the final word, she responded not with rage, but with resilience. And that is the quiet miracle of her life. Not that nothing bad happened, but that nothing bad had the final say. So, if you recognize yourself in any of these signs, if you've walked away from people who no longer fit, if you've remained calm when others expected chaos, if you've risen after pain with more wisdom than before, then you are not alone. You are not unworthy. You are not forgotten. You are protected. There is a reason your path feels different. There is a reason your peace keeps being preserved even when you don't understand how. That reason is tied to your calling, your character, your capacity to rise. You may not always feel strong, but you're being strengthened. You may not always feel seen, but you're being safeguarded. And when the noise fades, when the wrong things fall away, what remains is the truth of who you are. Not just a woman surviving in a chaotic world, but a woman chosen, covered, and equipped to walk boldly toward everything she was made for.